basic rules to adjusting the Ekoslide is make sure when you adjust on the closed side. So in this case here, we'll start on this side that's closed, we'll adjust the front roller, then the next roller, then the next roller, then we'll throw the switch, and once this side is closed, then we can adjust that side. In terms of measurement, you'll use your feeler gauge. Your feeler gauge should be by default at the second step. That's 2 millimeters. So you'll see, I'll go to the first roller, make sure it's 2 millimeters, second roller 2 millimeters, third roller it's 2 millimeters. There are a couple exceptions which I'll get to at the end of this video, but for now just remember the 2 millimeter rule and we'll move forward. In order to adjust, the first step is to loosen this top nut. It's just the lock nut to keep the adjustment bolt in place. So first we'll loosen this. You don't have to completely remove it in most cases, so just make sure it's loose. And then in order to raise the point, you'll want to turn the adjustment bolt clockwise. You'll see I use my feeler gauge. I'm putting it in, and I get to step 1 before I do any turning. That means if I turn it a couple times, good half turns, I should be able to get to the second step. So one turn, 2 turns, and I'll give it maybe a little bit more. And now I'm up to the second step on the first one. So once I've done the first, it's time to move on to the next. So again, same procedure. All I'm doing is I'm going to come and loosen up the lock nut. Check my feeler gauge. Give it a few turns. Make sure I can get into the second step with the feeler gauge, and then move on to the next. Again, loosen the top nut, check the feeler gauge. In this case, you'll see I already have 2 millimeters, but it's before I have any pressure here. It's a common exception, so you'll see that what I'm going to do is I want to make sure the roller's taking some pressure, so I'm still going to raise it a little bit. By giving a couple turns, I know the roller's doing something. It's very common as you move to the back of the switch. As you raise the front where there's more weight, you'll move to the back, you'll already have 2 millimeters. So in the case of already having 2 millimeters before you even adjust, just raise it up 1 more so you can make sure your roller's doing something for you. This side is finished, so you can throw the switch. Now that I've thrown the switch, you'll see we started on this side. This is now the open side. This is now the newly closed side. So we're now going to go down, starting with the front on the newly closed side. So again, it's the same procedure. We're going to go through, and we're going to loosen our lock nuts. Make sure I've got, in this one, I'm starting out with the proper height, and I have pressure, so I can move on to the next. Okay, this one's done. This one's actually not taking any pressure at all. It's just like we saw over here. So you can see I already have my 2 millimeters, but I want to make sure the roller's taking pressure. So I'm going to turn and make sure we have some pressure here. Okay, now I can feel it engaging, and it's done. At this point, you'll want to throw the switch back and forth a few times. What you'll want to look for is if any of the individual plates are still rubbing. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting the feeler gauge all the way down the side, just to make sure I can get it in over each plate. If say I came to this plate and it was rubbing, then I would know I'd need to raise the nearest roller a little bit more. So I would raise this another notch up just to take the pressure off here. But in this case I have a nice level switch and that's not necessary. So you'll throw the switch a few times, make sure it's throwing easier, and then your last step is just to go down and lock down all your lock nuts. You don't want to use an impact when you do that. When you tighten down your lock nuts, all you'll want is just take your wrench and just give it a good two-handed tug, and that's it. Doesn't need to be any tighter than that, and you'll make it harder on yourself if you do. That's the basics of adjustment from scratch.